All right. Welcome back into another edition of Jake's Takes. I am your host, Jake Masucci, and I am super excited to be joined by my guy, Jack Gohlke. Super excited to have him back. Jack, how we doing, man? I mean, it's been a while. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Super excited to be joining you, talk some football today, just catch up and get back to talking ball. And it's the best time of the year, the fall football season, sports equinox. So let's just enjoy it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I mean, we got every sport rolling right now. The NBA is around the corner. Like everything's rolling right now. So I had to get Jack back on. We were talking like all season, like, okay, when are we doing this NFL pod? Trying to plan it out, trying to make it work. We finally got together. We're like, all right, it's the quarter point of the season. We're ready to go. So I'm super excited to have Jack back on here. Before we start, Jack, you're playing professionally right now. So catch the audience up a little bit about what you've been doing and how things have been going for you.
Yeah, so since we last talked, just kind of wrapped up my summer and signed a contract to come play overseas here in Montenegro. Playing in two leagues out here. Our team is in an international league and a domestic league, so a lot of games and a lot of traveling and things like that. But it's a ton of fun and just getting the experience of visiting new places and getting to call basketball my job officially has been a ton of fun, and I just feel super lucky. So just trying to make the most of it in my rookie year.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I love that we're talking about this, man. Like, I remember talking to you during the season, and you were just like, yeah, I might go get an accounting job. We'll be all right. And now you're playing professionally overseas. I freaking love it. So, I'm happy for you, man. I'm happy we're going to be talking some NFL, dude. Like, this is awesome.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me back on. I'm excited.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, so let's get right into it. I want to start with the NFC North. The NFC North has just been unbelievable, and I don't think we've seen a start from all four teams like this dominant. The Vikings sit at 5-0, the Lions are 4-1, Packers 4-2, and the Bears 4-2. It's pretty impressive what we've seen so far. So, we're gonna kind of jump through divisions, and I'll ask Golke a question, and we'll go back and forth and talking about it. So, with the NFC North, do you think this is the best division, like just start for a division we've ever seen in the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it kind of has to be because I just remember after this week wrapped up and the Packers got the win over the Cardinals. I looked at the standings and I was like, the Packers are tied for last in the division right now at 4-2. Like, what's this about? This is ridiculous. So, just trying to kind of make sense of the division with the Vikings coming out of nowhere and just being an absolutely dominant team, and the Lions obviously just as consistent as they were last year. They put up a huge game against the Cowboys, and I mean Caleb Williams just every week gets better and better and better. So just trying to figure out like who's going to come on top. This division is going to be a bloodbath.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about the NFC North is just like, when I was previewing it, I was like, okay, when we're looking at this, it's pretty clear that the Vikings are last. I think everybody had that preseason. And then now they're
Yeah.
just like tearing it up. Sam Darnold looks unbelievable. Like preseason, we were like, okay, they might start JJ McCarthy. They might put him off the bench. We don't know what happens. And then he gets injured and he's just done. So then it's like, okay, it's Darnold's team. And still people were like, I don't think like they're going to be that great. They don't have much. Their defense isn't great. But everybody forgot about Brian Flores. This guy's been unbelievable with their defense. They're one of the best run defenses in football. So talk to me about what you've seen from the Vikings and how shocking this is.
Yeah, I mean the biggest thing about it is like you look at their finals and they've been dominating not just against mediocre competition, but I mean against some of the best teams in the league, the Niners, the Texans, the Packers, like teams that we're calling top 10 teams in the league. And the Vikings have just taken them to the woodshed. And I think even like the game against the Jets, they get up 17-0 and Darnold then struggles towards the end of the game. But it's like every game they're just building leads early in the game. So I'm really curious to see how this game goes against Detroit when it's a massive division game, but Detroit's in a big letdown spot where they just had a huge revenge game against the Cowboys.
Yep.
And are they going to come in at full effort, especially after losing Hutchinson as tragic as that was? So, I mean, watching this Vikings team, and like you said, seeing how Flores is dialing things up and confusing quarterbacks. I mean, Brock Purdy out there after the game, like we saw him almost congratulating Flores
Yeah.
on the type of defense that he's putting out there. So if he can consistently do that throughout the season, I do think we're obviously not going to have MVP level Sam Darnold for the whole year, but if this defense can continue to confuse quarterbacks, I mean, I don't see how they don't finish, still with 12 wins this season, because like they already, what are they, 5-0 right now?
Five
So
and oh,
if
yeah.
they go 7-5 the rest of the way, they're a 12-win team. So I think it's still going to be really good things for the Vikings.
Yeah, I mean, it is crazy to think about that. And the thing is like Kevin O'Connell's such a great offensive coach. Like he can make a quarterback like that can make those adjustments and make it better. He can make them look good. And Sam Darnold has looked really good with those weapons. Justin Jefferson's had an unbelievable year, and they're getting the ball off quick. Like they're letting Darnold process things, and it's really looking nice. And they found a run game with Aaron Jones. I think Aaron Jones has really proven to be an unbelievable running back. And you saw how much it hurt them when he went out a few weeks ago against the Packers when the Packers started coming back, So with the Vikings, I think it's shocking for everyone, but like seeing them this good, like they're for real and they'll definitely be up there moving in there. So I want to give you the floor with the Packers. Okay. So let's talk about Packers here a little bit. It started out a little rough, and then Malik Willis gives you life and wins 2 games for you, and then Jordan Love's back. So talk to me about your opinion of the Packers so far, 4-2 right now. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, obviously, it was disappointing to see Love go down, and kind of really scary to see like where's the season going to go from that point on. But I mean, credit to Malik Willis and credit to Matt LaFleur for taking care of business and putting great game plans together to win without throwing the ball a ton of times, just running the ball, playing hard nosed football, and getting 2 big wins to stay in the hunt in such a tough division. Who would have known like how important all those games would be? So definitely impressed with the Packers so far. Xavier McKinney on the back end defensively has been a huge addition for them. Like he's really anchored the defense on that back end and kind of made everybody else's job easier when Jair Alexander hasn't necessarily been as good as he was maybe 2 years ago and things like that. So I think those and also like our new defensive coordinator has been calling a much better defense and I think going forward, especially like this weekend against the Texans, that's going to be another big test for the Packers. But I really do like how Love has been playing recently. I mean, obviously he's putting up great numbers. I think we might have brought him back too soon against the Vikings.
Okay.
Like, yes, he did have a great second half in that game, but like the Vikings were in more of a prevent. Like we saw in the first half when he was really going against Flores and probably at 80%, he didn't play too great. So I think maybe we should have wrote it out with Willis for 1 more week there and just seen what happened. But regardless, like I really like where they're at going forward, but they do have a pretty tough schedule as well moving forward. Obviously, I mean, that's going to be the case for all these NFC North teams because they're going to beat up on each other. But I do think they're going to make the playoffs, but I would be surprised if they end up winning this division just with the Vikings having a 2-game lead on them and also like with the Lions being as good as they are. So I think they'll end up being like a 6 seed or something like that in the NFC.
Yeah, I like that take. I mean, I really think the Packers have improved a little bit. Like their defense looks a lot better. The young guys are definitely stepping up on that end. I've always loved their offensive line. I think they have a very solid offensive line, and they're really doing a great job. I think, with that Vikings game, like you said, Jordan Love didn't look great to start. I also think it was just the physical presence that the Vikings brought at the beginning. Like they showed you, okay, we're going to
Yeah,
be more
absolutely.
physical than you, and that's what's made this defense so good. It's just really impressive on that end for the Vikings. And then these last 2 weeks have been huge. Playing against a team like the Cardinals who struggled defensively, but being able to dominate in the fashion that they did. Like a lot of people had the Cardinals as sleeper teams, including me. Like I like the Cardinals before
Me
the year.
too. Me too.
So exactly. So like having a win like that, that's huge. And now you're playing a team like the Texans, who have looked unbelievable throughout the whole year. I really think this is going to be a big tester because you're at home. Like Jordan, there's no Jordan Love's injured anymore. Like this is a big game here. So they got to come out and be that physical team to start. And I'm excited to see it from Green Bay because I was very high on them. I had them being the top wild card team. I had the Lions winning the division, them being the top wild card team. So I still think they're going to be really, really talented and difficult to difficult to break, man. Like they're just such a good team. I love what LaFleur does with this team. Dude, the NFC North is just so stacked, and that kind of
Yeah,
leads me
it's
into
so
the
good this year.
yeah, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. That's kind of leads me into the Lions, who we haven't even talked about, who just won 47-9. So, I mean, I know like we talk about Lions, Packers like all the time, and now the Vikings are just in this conversation. They just decided to hop in. So, talk to me about what you've seen from the Lions a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think first off, you have to start with, unfortunately, the Hutchinson injury. I mean,
Yeah.
he was just producing at such a high level and making that Defensive Player of the Year case through 6 weeks that it really hurts to see him go down. I think I saw a stat that was like the Lions have generated almost 70 pressures this year, and he has like 45 or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. So he's just being an absolute beast out there. And the question is now that his double teams are going to go away, how is the rest of their defensive line going to bring pressure when they're not getting as many one-on-one looks? But offensively, I think we all could see at the beginning of the year they might have started things off a little too cute. Ben Johnson was maybe kind of trying to go to too many wrinkles at the beginning of the season, but I think they've kind of figured it out now. And obviously, last week against the Cowboys, they did do a couple things, pull a couple
Yeah.
things out of their back pocket, but that was intentional. And I'm just really excited to watch this game this weekend against the Vikings because I love how they've been calling their offense lately and how, I mean, just they have that 1-2 punch with Montgomery and Gibbs, and then their receiving core, the way Goff distributes the ball between all those guys is just really great to watch. And I mean, even the way Branch stepped up last week with a couple picks, and we
Yep.
saw Dan Campbell give him the game ball after the game. I think this team is just dialed in together, and they just have that spirit of the team that's kind of coming back from last season. They didn't get exactly where they wanted to, but they made a lot of progress, and I got high hopes for them as well going down the stretch.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm very, very excited. Like going into preseason, I really tried not to be biased. Like this podcast is a non-biased show. And I I couldn't not pick the Lions to win the Super Bowl. I just couldn't because like on paper, this team has like the best offense, a much improved defense, and if you're looking for somebody that isn't the Chiefs, like it's not even close to me. Like the 49ers lost a lot and we're seeing it like
Yeah.
have them struggle. So a lot of it here with the Lions, like I'm just super impressed with the Hutchinson injury. Absolutely killer. It's going to be tough, but we've seen an improved defensive line with DJ Reader and all those guys. It has come to fruition. If we feel like we need another pass rusher, why not go trade for a guy like Trey Hendrickson or someone like that can help? A lot of people are saying Max Crosby. I feel like
Bring him
that's
home.
too. Yeah, I feel like it's just a little too much. Like a lot of people, it'll probably be like a first round pick and a third round pick. I don't really want to do that. That's a lot in my book. So get a guy like Hendrickson, someone that's a little less, maybe like a second or a third, and do that if you feel like, okay, we got to go all in on this team. So right now, sitting at 4-1, big game against Minnesota next week. It's going to answer a lot of questions here. Can you do it 2 weeks in a row? Because a lot of teams struggle to do that, and we saw it at the beginning. I loved what you were saying with the Lions struggling to find an identity for this team. Because a lot of the time, that's just how it is. I mean, look at our team last year. We lost to Walsh the first game. We didn't have an identity. We didn't have an identity,
Yeah.
and then we figured it out and we beat Kentucky at the end of the year. That's just how teams work. Those first few weeks aren't going to solidify who you are as a team. And I really think Ben Johnson did a good job of trying things to figure it out. And then we saw it on full display last week. But my question for the Lions is, can you do it 2 weeks in a row? Because I love this team. I think they're awesome. And I think they're super well coached and everything. They have everything on paper. But once I see it 2 weeks in a row, then I'm like, okay, like this is clear. I'm flat out loving this, So I'm excited to see it against the Vikings next week. With the Bears, let's talk about Bears real quick. My question to you is like, what you've seen from Caleb Williams right now. Like, do you think he can solidify himself as a future top 5 quarterback in the NFL?
Yeah, it's tough to say. I think the question was being thrown around so much after 2 weeks when Daniels was thriving and Caleb Williams was playing pretty poorly. Should we have taken Jaden? Should Jaden Daniels have been the number one overall pick? And I don't think we can just throw our priors away that quickly and say Daniels is the better quarterback. Like we've already seen now through 6 weeks, Caleb Williams has improved week 3, week 4, week 5, week 6, and I mean through 4 touchdowns last week in London. That's a situation that's tough for any rookie quarterback to go into. So I think he's done a really good job of not just playing in the unscripted situations like we know he can and like he did almost all the time at USC, but now the way that they're designing their offense and he's just making the right reads, finding the right throws. They're protecting him a little better, and I really think that that's the thing that you have to be able to do to be a top 5 quarterback in this league. So I would not be surprised if in 3 or 4 years he's in that conversation, because as great as Mahomes and Josh Allen and those guys are at making those plays off script, it's really about making those plays 80% of the time, or 80% of the time when you're on script, making those right reads and those right plays. So I think Caleb's definitely trending in the right direction. What are you thinking?
Yeah. Caleb's interesting for me. Like a lot of people freak out after the first 2 weeks, and it happens every year. You know, a lot of people thought the Saints were the best team in football after 2 weeks. So, and we'll get to that later. But you know, looking at Caleb Williams here, it's just been super impressive how he's grown. And a lot of the time, people forget. Like we're seeing Jaden Daniels, we're seeing C.J. Stroud have unbelievable rookie seasons. This is not normal. You know, or the rookie season is supposed to be a time of like hardship, and it's supposed to be really tough. And the system that Caleb Williams was dropped into, you're like, oh, it's really, really good for a number 1 overall pick. You know, like they have everything. They don't have an offensive line. Their offensive line is really, really bad. And that's why I'm very impressed with how they've been able to figure out wins and how he's been able to manage the game. You know, he's not costing them these games, which is absolutely huge for a rookie quarterback. That's taking the right steps. To me, he can turn into that guy. It's just gonna, you know, like we'll see. You know, a lot of the time, like a lot of guys can look good for a multiple week stretch, and then you'll see them fall down. You know, so it's going to be interesting with Caleb there. He's got a lot of great weapons. I mean, DJ Moore's looked good this year. Keenan Allen looking good, and then Roma Dunze can turn into somebody that's really, really talented. The thing with the Bears that's just so impressive to me is their defense. Their defense has been awesome all year, and you know, it's interesting. With the NFC North, like one of the questions I wrote down was, can all 4 teams make the playoffs? Like, it's possible here, but for me, like there's something about the Bears that just don't get me there. You know, like they're really, really good. They have pieces here, but it's also to me, okay, rookie quarterback, and he's not looking like Jaden Daniels. He's not looking like C.J. Stroud, and I feel like that's the step you got to take. Do you think the Bears can make the playoffs, or like, do you think I'm crazy in saying that? Like, I'm just not seeing it yet.
I think it's kind of exciting, and it's like it would be really cool if we could see a division get all their teams into the playoffs. But I just think the cannibalism that comes with playing that many games against each other in your division just kind of makes it virtually impossible for all 4 teams to actually end up making the playoffs. So now that we'll start to pick up some of these division games with the Lions and the Vikings this weekend, and then the Bears and the Packers coming up soon, I think that this is going to be a time when maybe the Bears falter a little bit and kind of show that they're the 4th team in this division. I do think they're a solid football team, like you said, but yeah, I don't really see them making the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I got you. So, closing on the NFC North, we discussed it a lot because I feel like it is the best division in football, and there's a lot of contenders in this division. So, where would you, if you had to close the season, where would you have 1 through 4? Bears 4 probably, but where would you have 1 through 3?
Yeah, I would go Bears 4, Packers 3, Vikings 2, and Lions 1. I think I'm believing in the Lions this week. I think they're going to get a huge divisional win, and I think I honestly think they're going to end up being the 1 seed in the NFC this year. And then I think the Vikings and Packers are kind of going to be like that 4-5 or 5-6 in the wild card seeding.
Yeah, no, I like that. I have the same exact thing. My preseason, I had Vikings 4, and then Bears 3, and then Packers 2. But I'm going to flip Vikings and Packers right now, just because the Vikings got a huge divisional win earlier against the Packers in Green Bay.
At Lambeau too. Yeah.
Exactly, and that's just huge. That's huge for the end of the year. And we were saying it too. Like with Green Bay, there's still pieces that they can kind of put together to make it work. So they're close. and they're going to be a very, very dangerous playoff team. Both of those teams will be, no matter what. Even if the Lions are sitting at 5, like, that's so scary for anybody.
Yeah.
So, like that division is just so stacked. So I wanted to center on it mostly. Let's switch over to NFC South, and I kind of want to just go through them quickly because it's kind of a boring division. But so my Falcons question here. Have they figured out how to use all these weapons? Because they're sitting at 4-2 now. Kirk Cousins is looking better. Have they figured this thing out, or do you still see some flaws here?
I honestly still see a couple flaws. I think their offense is, I mean, obviously moving in the right direction, and I think the biggest thing is that they've got the run game going, and that's, I mean, Kirk's always been a tremendous quarterback off play action, so getting Bijan going downhill and feeding him and Algier throughout the game just really opens things up for them. And I think the more they utilize that, the more they will be able to use Pitts and Drake London. But like, you just see how much Kirk is using Ray McLeod and Darnell Mooney, which isn't a bad thing, but I do think that just shows that there's still room to improve for Pitts and especially, but also for Drake London and their utilization. So I think there's still an area for them to grow, but they've obviously shown that they can be a great team and one of the division leaders. I do think they're kind of going to pull back, which is maybe a hint on who I would pick for the division, but it'll be interesting to see what happens down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean they're weird to me just because like if you look at their past games, they're like a play away from beating the Chiefs, and they'd be sitting at 5-1 right now, which is weird. They don't seem like that. They don't seem like that 5-1 kind of team, and the fact that they were able to beat the Bucs, Kirk Cousins had an unbelievable game in order to do that. I don't know what's going on with the Bucs defense, but like Kirk Cousins throwing 500 yards, that was an eye-opening wake up when I woke up and checked in on that game. I was like, what the heck happened last night? But like with the Falcons here, they're just able to get some gritty close wins. Like that Eagles win was really, really impressive. The Bucs win, and then they were able to control the game and come back against the Saints. Like they're winning those big games here. That's why, to me, like some of these wins are impressive. And I don't know if they figured it out because it's ugly and then they close it well. And Kirk Cousins has been very good at closing games as well. I think he's figuring it out. He's moving a little better than he was near the beginning of the year because he struggled against Pittsburgh that first game. So with the Falcons, I'm excited, but like not crazy excited. I could see them winning the division or getting close to winning that division. It going down to Bucs Falcons. They actually play each other not this week, but the following, which will be a huge game in Tampa Bay. So looking at it that way, I can see it coming down to the wire, but there are like pieces where it's just like, I don't know,
Yeah, definitely. I think defensively, I mean, I believe they have 5 sacks on the season. So like pass rush has just been brutal for them. And I think that's going to come back to bite them down the stretch if they don't figure it out, because the more time you put in throughout the season, the more players you're going to lose. It's just a war of attrition. And if you can't get pressure on the quarterback right now, down the stretch, it's really going to be hard. So I think, like you said, it'll just be kind of one of those things that we just watch it play out. And in this division, it's just really a 2-horse race.
Yeah. So Bucs versus Falcons, who do you like more out of those two teams?
I'm honestly a Bucs guy. I know the Bucs defense is very suspect as well. These two defenses are kind of flipped in the way that the Falcons front four is brutal, and the Bucs secondary has just been ran over the entire season by every quarterback they come up against. So defensively, I think they're both about even, and obviously the Falcons have been humming on offense. But I mean, the way Baker's been playing, just been finding Evans and Godwin constantly, and they don't have the best rushing attack, but I really like the trajectory that they're on right now. And if Evans and Godwin can stay healthy, they're definitely my pick to win the division. Just because I think those two just have such a rapport with Baker already. And I love also Todd Bowles, just the way that he coaches the team and the way he calls the defense, even though they've been lacking defensive weapons and they've been lacking a bit in their performance. I think when it comes down to it, and also when they get into those second matchups with the Falcons and with other divisional teams, I like how the direction those are going to go as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's similar to what we talked about with Flores. Like Bulls has that defensive mind. It struggled a little bit because the personnel isn't there. They lost a lot defensively in the offseason. We talked about that in the offseason podcast. But like looking at the Bucks is it's gonna rely on like can they pass the ball at this clip, because Godwin's looked unbelievable to start the year. Mike Evans has had some incredible games as well. So you're looking at it that way. The passing game has been so good, but there's been no run game. And this is a similar thing to what happened last year. Like Rashad White was an excellent fantasy running back, but he didn't do much like
Yeah.
actually running the ball, and it's been similar that way. Bucky Irving has had some good games, but he's not like he's just talented with his speed and his receiving, and being able to establish that run game is huge. With the Bucks, it's just going to be like, I don't know if I trust them enough to be able to throw the ball at this clip, and they're throwing it super well. Godwin and Evans are just unbelievable. But looking at it, like they're going to be ending up going against some good defenses. Their schedule's okay. It's not the greatest in the world, but the Falcons have it a little lighter. The Bucks won the division last year, so that means they have a harder schedule going into it. So looking at it that way, I feel like the Falcons are going to be able to get through in the division just because of that schedule lightness. But I am excited to see it overall. I think these two teams are pretty talented, and I don't know if they go past the first round of the playoffs this year, but like now the NFC with the NFC North looking great. Like it looks like a gauntlet if you're sitting at the 3 or 4 with that 5 and 6. But it's going to be interesting for sure. Looking at those last two teams, my one question with the Panthers is: does Bryce Young have a future in the NFL?
I mean, it's tough to say just because obviously seeing a number 1 overall pick get benched is pretty rare, especially in just the second season. But I think even just the example of like Sam Darnold, the way he was 3rd overall pick and kind of just been a journeyman in the league ever since he left New York, and now he's had his career revived. I think they're not necessarily going to get a haul back for him in a trade, obviously, but yeah. I would not be surprised at all if he finds a new landing spot and gets developed a little bit, maybe plays behind somebody and gets to learn and kind of just process and slow the game down for himself. So I think he's definitely going to have a backup job next year somewhere. And I mean, maybe even Carolina will stick with him and just bring in another person to contend with him in the offseason. But I definitely think that he'll have some sort of job next year just because of that number 1 overall pick pedigree. I mean, we saw a couple years ago, Josh Rosen was the 10th overall pick. He had a terrible first 2 years in Arizona, gets shipped to Miami, and then he was out of the league. But that was a very rare occurrence of a quarterback drafted that high getting kicked out of the league that soon. And a number 1 overall pick, I just don't see that happening. What do you think?
Yeah, it's tough. It's really tough. I was super high on him in my draft. He's currently, because I've done 2 classes now, he's the second highest I have for a quarterback. I was super, super high on him. And it's just because of the poise in the pocket. And the thing that happened with him is his confidence just completely withered. He just had no help. And he stopped making like easy throws. Like right when he threw it was a terrible incompletion on a screen pass. That like went to literally it was crazy bad. I watched that clip and I was just like, okay, I've never seen a quarterback throw that bad of a ball. And like Bryce Young just never could, like everything about Bryce Young coming out was this guy's going to be special. He's super, super talented. If I'm the Panthers, I do that trade 10 times out of 10. Like you go back to that time, you're desperate for a quarterback. Bryce Young seems like the guy. I do that. It sucks now because the Bears end up with Caleb Williams, who ends up completely better, and they end up with all this stuff. But if you're looking at it, like the Panthers took a swing and it didn't work, so them benching him, I think, is a little extreme. Like, let him play through it. And I don't think a quarterback, you can't see it until he has about like 20 starts in the league. Then you can see if he's actually like that guy. So it's interesting to me here, like that they did it this soon. But the Panthers, like, this is the worst situation I've ever seen number 1 overall quarterback like get dropped into. So
it's definitely rough.
It was really, really rough there. So I think for him, the best way for him to sustain a career is to go to another team, learn, And if they want you to be the guy, they want you to be the guy. But like it's going to take some time for him. He's got to get his confidence back, whatever that is, because the guy we saw at Alabama was worth the number one pick. Like I do not think I had the wrong evaluation on him. I thought he was awesome. You know, so with Bryce Young, like I hope him the best. You know, but it's really really tough situation over there for sure, for sure. And then the Saints, we kind of talked about it. Like through 2 games, they looked like the best team in football, and then it just completely fell through. Completely fell through. So I don't know. Do you have anything to add on the Saints or no?
I'll just very quickly say I just think it's super interesting how, like we said, through 2 weeks the Saints were dominating, looked like world beaters, and a lot of people might have been super excited and looked at them as like an underdog Super Bowl pick all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And now look at that. But the Vikings through 2 weeks kind of came from the same spot as the Saints. They looked like world beaters through 2 weeks. And if you went, oh, with them as your dark horse Super Bowl pick, you would feel comfortable right now. So it's just funny how two teams can kind of come from relative obscurity and then just go in completely different directions after that.
Yeah, that is really, really interesting. And like the Saints, like everybody was praising their offensive coordinator. Like, look what they've done. They've rejuvenated Derek Carr, and it's all just it's fallen off. You know, it's fallen off. Like they're still moving the ball. Like things are kind of working. Taysom Hill gets hurt, and your whole season's over. Just saying.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I mean it's really interesting with the Saints. I wasn't really high on them preseason, and I think it's just a tough environment. Like it's a tough environment to win in right now, and ever since they lost Breeze, it just hasn't really been the same for them. You know, so
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, kind of tough there. Let's switch over NFC East. My Commanders question, okay? Jaden Daniels. All right, this is literally like the most sensational start I've ever seen from a quarterback. Like it's flat out insane. He looks like the best quarterback in the NFL as a rookie. Like I think if he wasn't a rookie, he'd be easily the MVP favorite right now, which is crazy to say. You know, even with Sam Darnold going off, like I think it's Sam Darnold or Jaden Daniels. I don't think anybody would have thought that. But like, is he already a top 5 quarterback? Like this guy's unbelievable.
He's been playing so well. I mean, the fact that through the first 2 weeks they hadn't punted the ball or something crazy like that. I mean, he's been playing at a super high level. I definitely wouldn't put him in my top five already, but like you said, if we're just blindly looking at how quarterbacks have played this season, he would be in the top five, and you couldn't really argue that. So it's just a testament to him and his offensive system, and honestly, like shout out to Cliff Kingsbury for kind of leaving the league and figuring out how he can come back and make an impact and kind of groom a new quarterback. And they've obviously hit the ground running this season. So the more film teams get on him, it'll be interesting to see how things go down the stretch. But I mean, he's just an electric player who's that matchup between him and Lamar last weekend was one that I hope we can see a lot in the future of this league, because there's two super fun quarterbacks to watch. And I think, man, Jaden just has a super, super high ceiling in this league. And who knows? I think it'd be super exciting just for them to make the playoffs this year and to kind of get that momentum going into next season. Obviously, their defense is pretty rough, but if he can just keep improving, man, they have such a bright future in Washington, which we were not expecting.
I know. We really weren't expecting the Commanders to be sitting at first in the NFC East right now. So flat out insane there. Their offense just looks great. And they're getting by defensively. You know, like the defense was the question with this team, and they're just able to squeak it by, which is absolutely huge for them. And the fact they're sitting at 4-2, really, really impressive here. Dan Quinn doing unbelievable stuff in his first year. And we're noticing a little trend with a defensive head coach, you know, like getting their defense by. And if they have that dominant offense, they're able to win some games. We got Dan Quinn. We got, you know, a lot of these guys, Todd Bowles, you know, they're rolling right now. So impressive stuff there for sure. Looking at these last 3 teams, I want to look at Philly, Dallas, and the Giants here. But Philly and Dallas, higher expectations, you know, but I feel like with it, it's not looking great for them. So looking at these 3 teams, is there a team you like more than the other 2?
Honestly, as much as Dallas was getting sold preseason, I was still kind of buying some Dallas stock a little bit. And I think that was a mistake. I mean, they they just have no sort of running game, and they haven't been able to really find their continuity in the passing game. And obviously, with Parsons and Lawrence out recently, like their team's kind of just decimated, and they don't really have a direction right now. So I don't think you can really pick them. And I think the Giants, while they might be scrappy and Malik Neighbors is super exciting to watch this season, I don't really think they're the pick either because they just lost Andrew Thomas for presumably the season. And he's obviously been Daniel Jones's kind of only staple on that line. And man, I mean, even the Eagles, like they just have so many problems too. Like Sirianni just going all sideways. We don't really know what we're going to get. Like, if you don't know what you're going to get from your head coach on a week-to-week basis, like, you can't really expect much from the football team. So if I had to pick one, I'd probably go Philly just because I still love their weapons. And I just think they're such a veteran team that even if their coach is kind of going off the rails, that they can figure it out a little bit. But honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up being a team that only gets their top team into the playoffs, or a division, excuse me, that only gets their top team into the playoffs.
Yeah, and nobody would expect it to be the Commanders, if anything, because everybody, like, the Commanders look like the team to win that division. And I mean, looking at it, like, I think preseason, a lot of people had the Eagles. Preseason, I was with you. I would like the Cowboys going in, and I think a lot of it was just Dak. Like a lot of people were in on Dak, and he makes that O-line look a lot better, but it's so bad. This year, the O-line is really, really tough, and it's just making it difficult on Dak. And they're falling apart this year, like not looking great. I don't know if the Cowboys will be able to get back to that playoff spot. With the Giants, I like what you were saying. Like, they had some games where they were really going. Like, Daniel Jones looks good. He looks a lot better. They could be a lot better than 2-4 right now. Like they had some games where they definitely should have won them. Andrew Thomas, big loss. I think Dayball's actually doing a good job this year because they were really bad last year and they're turning it around this year. So I was kind of impressed with that end. And the fact that they're able to throw the ball even with Neighbors out is impressive to me. Neighbors looks unreal. Like, that guy was a stud.
He's exciting.
Yeah, he's exciting to watch. So the Giants, impressive to me that they're sitting in this category if we're talking about it. I thought they'd clearly be the worst team in the division or near the worst team with the Commanders, but wrong there. And then looking at the Eagles, I just can't tell if they're good, man. I don't know. I don't know. Like, Jalen Hurts, one moment can look really, really good, and then the next looked like the worst thing like I've ever seen. It's really tough to figure it out. And then Sirianni's the same way. It's difficult. If you have to pick a division winner, are you picking the Commanders, or do you think the Eagles can like shock them?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to just go with the team that's in first right now, but I just don't have any sort of faith in those other three teams, and the Commanders are just more dynamic than the rest of the teams in the division right now. Obviously, their defense isn't great, but I mean, those other three teams just have so many question marks at such important positions that with Washington, I think you just got to roll and trust Jaden Daniels to keep getting it done and continue to be making plays out there because he's been doing it with not only his legs, but also his arm. I mean, I think at one point he was completing 80% of his passes on the season. I know he's not at that point right now, but he's been throwing the ball tremendously as well. So, yeah, I'm going to stick with the Commanders. I don't know where you're looking, but that's where I'm going.
Yeah, no, I think I have to agree with you there. Like, they just look so dynamic at this point. Like, I've never seen a quarterback like hit at this completion rate and be able to run like this. Like, RG3 is the perfect example, and he looks like a better version of RG3 as a rookie, which is just flat out insane that the Commanders hit on it both times. The thing I was saying about Jaden Daniels is, like, I was very high on his tools and things that he could do. I was worried about the injuries. I was worried that he would run too much. So if he's able to stay healthy, Commanders look like an unbelievable bet and an unbelievable team to maybe shock some people and make a run in the NFC. But like right now, it's going to be like, okay, like we got to stay healthy. We got to keep things rolling. And they got so many weapons that really helped them out. And I think the Commanders are going to be a little bit scary going into the playoffs. Like, it might be some exciting stuff, but I don't think this is how anybody thought the NFC East was going to roll this year. Like, this is
No, it's
crazy.
just classic out of that division.
For sure, for sure. All right, so we're on the last division, NFC West. Okay, we can kind of group them and go a little fast here. The Rams, just injuries, man. The injuries, like we can't tell what's going on. Stafford's dealing with some injuries now. Cooper Kupp's been out for a while. Puka Nakua's been out for a while. The Rams, I just don't know right now. They're sitting at 1-5. It's difficult to see exactly what's going on. I want to group these three teams together with the Cardinals, 49ers, and the Seahawks. The 49ers had super high expectations, but it hasn't been working. The Cardinals are the same way. So those two, talk to me about those two a little bit, because I feel like I was high on the Cardinals. A lot of people were high. What do you think's been going on with those two teams?
Yeah, I'll start with the Cardinals. I was super high on the Cardinals coming in as well. I liked them to get a wild card this year, and I still do, to be honest. I think it's just one of those things that they've been playing tremendously on their opening script. I think they've before the 49ers game, they opened every game with a touchdown on their first drive, and they've just really been after that. They haven't been that productive, and they haven't done anything really that special. And I don't really know why that is, because Kyler should be able to make plays. I mean, obviously, he can make plays with his legs, and they've been running the ball pretty well with James Conner, too. So I still do trust their offense, but their defense is just terrible.
Yeah.
And with Budda Baker kind of banged up week to week as their only really consistent defensive player, they've just been scrapping to get any stops. And I think they kind of just got lucky against the Niners with them losing their kicker and kind of having to go for it in some weird spots. So I do have faith in them offensively, and they're obviously going to win a couple games by scoring 30 points. But going forward, I don't think they're going to be consistent just because of that defensive aspect of if they don't score 30, they're probably not going to win each week. So with the Cardinals, I think they're probably going to finish around 7-8 wins. With the Niners, I think it's really just the buildup of such deep playoff runs year after year, and when you don't capitalize and when you don't win, that kind of just builds up and wears on you. And we saw it just with how their offseason went. People didn't really want to show up to camp. There were hold-ins, there were holdouts, and Ayuk still hasn't really got it going. I mean, Purdy's been playing pretty well, but missing McCaffrey, and then Mason goes down, and obviously they can still run the ball with anybody, but I just think that some of those defensive losses as well have cost them. And they're obviously still a tremendous team, but I don't really see them truly making another run in the NFC this year.
Yeah, no, I agree completely on those two, especially. Like, just been like everybody was super high on them. You know, a lot of people were like, oh, 49ers, like coming off Super Bowl, they can make it. Yeah, no, it hasn't been that way. 49ers, it's just been injuries. Like, they're an older team, dude. Like, they got a lot of guys that it's just like, this is kind of, they're near the end of their careers. You know, it's fallen off a little bit. And I feel like last year had to be their year to win it. And, you know, that they weren't able to get it done against a team that they overmatched, you know, and that's why I talk about it a lot on the podcast, why it was so impressive that the Chiefs were able to win that Super Bowl, because they were overmatched, in my opinion, in 3 rounds, you know? So,
Yeah.
like, it's crazy there. But, yeah, like when you have those teams that need to win the Super Bowl now and you don't, going into that next season is so difficult. It's so difficult. You see it a lot in basketball, even like the Milwaukee Bucks won the NBA Finals a couple of years ago, and now everybody's old. You know, like their whole team is over 34 years old. You know, like
Yeah.
and it's tough to win that way. You know, Giannis sitting at 30, so it's tough to win with those guys. And it's the same way here with this 49ers team. I think they're just a little too old, falling off a little bit, and they could make the playoffs out of this division. You know, I don't trust the Seahawks that much because their inconsistencies have just been like, they can beat bad teams, but when they play a good team, it's just a struggle. It's a struggle. And Geno, it's tough to tell. Like, Geno's played well this year, but he doesn't have too much help with him. So to me, like, It's going to be interesting out of this division. I don't really trust anybody here. They could be sitting at a 3-4 and be playing a really good wild card team. So it'll be interesting to see with this division. But overall, like, just kind of disappointing from the Cardinals. We talked about the defense. It's just not the greatest thing in the world. I don't even know who to pick out of this division, to be honest. Like, who are you picking out of the division?
Honestly, my division finishes is going to be San Fran, Arizona, Seattle, LA.
Okay.
But I don't think. I mean, I think San Fran's going to go 10-7, Arizona maybe 8-9, Seattle 8-9 or 7-10, and then the Rams. Who knows? Who cares?
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think San Fran's gonna probably be like 3 or 4 seed in the NFC.
Yeah. No, I like that. I like that a lot. I think it's shocking to me that San Fran's like fell this much, because I did feel
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, they could win 11, 12 games and be like one of those really, really tough teams to deal with still. But it is a little shocking there. But overall, like, I think they're still the most talented team in the division and would be able to get it done. I like what you were saying
Yeah,
there.
absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, we are actually going to take a little break, and then we'll switch over to the AFC and talk some more football. So we'll be back in a sec. All right. Welcome back into the show. And let's get right back into it. We're going to roll. Let's start in the AFC North here. This division, a lot of people were super high on like almost everybody in the division. So I'm kind of excited to talk about it here. Um, I mean, let's just start with the Browns, because I think it's kind of funny, like how high people, like there was a lot of people that were like, okay, Deshaun Watson going to take a step up, like things are going to be good here. They're sitting at 1-5, and they look like one of the worst teams like I've ever seen. Deshaun Watson is really, really bad, and it just fell apart completely. They're getting Chubb back next week, and Myles Garrett's dealing with some injuries, and it's rough for them so far. So, I mean, talk to me about the Browns a little bit.
Man, I almost feel bad for Chubb coming back in because I don't even really see the purpose behind it. Like, I don't really think he's going to be back to 100% at this point. And it's
Yeah.
like, why rush him back? Like you said, they've got one win. They don't really have anything going. They just traded Cooper away. Like, the defense has been struggling a little bit, at least compared to what we expect out of them. And it's just one of those things where they'll still be competitive in their divisional games just because the AFC North is just always going to be a dogfight, no matter what the records are. Those teams just always come to play against each other, but they got to figure out this Deshaun Watson situation. Like, at some point, it's a sunk cost, and you just got to go in a different direction. Like, I understand that you're paying him a crazy amount of money, but you're paying him a crazy amount of money regardless. So are they sticking with him right now because they want to
Yeah.
get a higher draft pick, or do they? There's no way they actually think he's the better quarterback. So I think it just comes down to like future planning. Are they trying to just kind of almost do a mini tank and get a better pick and say we're going to stick with the worst quarterback, or what? But that's up for their front office to decide. I think they're just trying to keep their jobs at this point.
Yeah, it's really tricky. Like, you've given so much to Deshaun Watson, and you're gonna be like, okay, we're paying him how much to sit on the bench? Like that's the tough thing, and that's where it's like, even if you're gonna lose every game, like you can't do anything. Like I'm sure Kevin Stefanski's already sick of answering questions about it, because it's like, he if he were to bench him, they might fire him tomorrow, just because like of how much they're spending on him. Like it's a really tough situation. And your backup's Jameis Winston. Like, he might win you some games, dude. He might just throw it down the field and be able to do some
Definitely be
things.
more exciting.
Exactly. It would be more exciting. I think every fan is hoping that it's Jameis Winston. But like with the Browns, it's really tough. I mean, I don't think a lot of people expected it to go this far downhill. Hey, it shows you how good Joe Flacco is, because he's looking unbelievable in Indianapolis, and he was able to make some plays in Cleveland here. So Cleveland falling apart, I don't think a lot of people expected that. It's tough. I mean, I feel bad for Cleveland fans, because they can't find a quarterback. It's been ages for them, and they trade so much for this guy, and he's just been awful for them. So it's been really, really rough there. I want to put Cincy and Pittsburgh together a little bit. Cincy started out slow, sitting at 2-4 now, and I mean, they could start waking up. Joe Burrow's actually played pretty well. Their defense hasn't been great. And then Pittsburgh's just a weird. They're 4-2. They're looking solid. I mean, Justin Fields looks like a solid quarterback, and Mike Tomlin just puts together wins there. But I mean, focusing on Cincy a little bit, talk to me about what you've seen from them. Do you think they're going to be able to turn it around and like make a run at the AFC North?
Yeah, I think that Baltimore game was kind of a devastating loss for them. Like they needed that game in the division and
Yeah.
they really deserved to win it, to be honest with you. But just the way that game ended, I think that was kind of just devastating for them. And obviously they did bounce back, but I think the way they pass the ball and their weapons is tremendous, and that's always going to keep them in games. But kind of like we were saying with the Cardinals, I mean, their defense is just lackluster, and they're always going to be leaking points, no matter how much they're up, how big of leads they can build. They don't have the defense or the pass rush overall to keep themselves in that position. So I don't really think they're going to end up making a playoff push. Maybe they'll get closer to 500 as the season wears on. But the one thing they do have going for them is the AFC is relatively weak at the wild card spot. So they could sneak in at maybe like a 9-8 or something like that. And I'm going to keep watching them all year because, like you said, they're a ton of fun with Burrow. But I don't think they're really that great of a football team this season.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. Burrow for me, like I've always had him super high, and I've always like really loved him. Like ranking him just because of what he's done with playoff success, and playoff success means a lot to me when I'm talking about like quarterbacks. He looks completely back. He looks awesome. He's been playing really well, and that's something I was concerned about them preseason, and partly why I was lower on them because I was like, okay, if Burrow's not 100%, this defense is okay, but it's not the greatest thing in the world. And like I just wasn't sure if they'd be able to win games. And at this stage here, it's been pretty much the exact opposite where like Burrow's been great, but their defense just like looks like a bottom 5 defense. And it's really difficult to win, like we were saying with the Cardinals, like the Commanders, they're able to get it through because their head coach is defensive oriented, right? Zach Taylor, more of an offensive guy. He's more on that offensive stage. So like looking at it that way, it's like it's been really tricky. And Lou Almirola, while he's a great defensive coordinator and has made like great adjustments, I mean, we'll see if he can make a midseason adjustment to really change that defense and make it a physical defense. But looking at it that way, it's just right now what we've seen from Cincy, it's really tricky to say, and it's just it's tough, and I feel like with the Bengals, losing a guy like Joe Mixon has been huge for them. They haven't been able to run the ball at the same clip, which has been tough. He's been great in Houston when he's played and been healthy. He's been unbelievable. So looking at it that way, like Cincy, I have hopes. I think I'm a little more hopeful than you are just because of how Burrow's been playing. He looks like a top 5 quarterback again, which I'm excited for. But overall right now, like we need that defensive change. Like they need to become at least like the 15th best defense in the NFL. And we'll see if they're able to get back up there, but I'm excited for them overall. Baltimore. Let's talk about Baltimore. I think to me, they look like the best team in football. They've been awesome like all year. Lamar Jackson looking great. The one concern is probably pass defense, but I looked at a stat the other day. They've played all of the top 5 quarterbacks in passer rating, and like they're playing unbelievable quarterbacks every single week. So something to me, I'm not too concerned about it there, even though they lost Mike McDonald, even though they lost a lot of defense. So talk to me about what you've seen from the Ravens. I think they look awesome, and I'm not the biggest Ravens fan in the world. Like I think they just look great. So talk to me about it a little bit.
Yeah, first off, I mean, like you said, defensively, they lost their coordinator, who's widely regarded as one of the best defensive minds. But I mean, they still have a bunch of great players. I mean, Kyle Hamilton on the back end is tremendous. They still got Patrick Queen in the middle, and their pass rush is respectable. So while their defense has been getting passed on pretty bad, I think that's kind of just going to happen, like you said, for one, with the type of quarterbacks they played, but also just how dominant offensively they've been. So teams are going to be playing from behind or just trying to put as many possible points on the board. Teams aren't really going to be playing ball control against them because as soon as Baltimore gets the ball, they're going to score. They're scoring regardless. Yeah. So you got to put up points when you get it. I mean, Baltimore's averaging like 7 yards per play, which is just crazy. I mean, when you watch their games, you just feel like every play is going to be a first down. Like it's just this consistency where they can go to Derrick Henry. Lamar's been throwing it amazing this season. I think he's over 250, 260 yards a game in
Yep.
the air, and he's still running it really well. He looks more elusive in the pocket. We saw that he dropped weight this year. So they're really just putting it together. And to be honest, I think Lamar's my MVP pick as of right now, if the season ended today. And it's just going to be really interesting to see them come playoff time, because I think they're going to continue to dominate in the regular season, and they might finish with 13, 14 wins, even though they started 0-2. But it's just about how they're going to establish themselves in the playoffs, and if they're going to stick to their identity. We saw them get away from it last year, and it really cost them. But I think they kind of learned their lesson, and this year I'm just super excited to see where that takes them.
Yep. Yep. I mean, Lamar looks great again, really unbelievable regular season. And I like what you're saying. I think he's top tier near the MVP. There's not a clear MVP again this year, so it'll definitely be interesting where it lines up. But with Baltimore, they've looked great this year, and I'm really impressed with what I've seen. They look, I think, almost better than last year. Derrick Henry just adds another element where they can continue that time of possession football, which that's what wins games, man. Like, you don't need the most talented quarterback in the world. You don't need all of this. If you can control time of possession, it's just so valuable in football. And I really think they did a great job, like, pouring into that identity offensively, at least, to help that out. For sure. So, Pittsburgh, let's center on them just for a little bit. They're really weird. So talk to me about, like, what you think of Pittsburgh, because I don't know what to think. I feel like with Pittsburgh, I'm always like, okay, Tomlin's going to win them like 10 games, and then they're going to lose first round. Like, that's just what I think every year,
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. And that's why I'm high on them every year, just to win 10 games, So talk to me about what you've seen from them and what you think of them.
Yeah, I'm just really curious to see kind of what happens in their quarterback room, because there's been talks this week that they're going to start Russell Wilson and put Fields to the bench, which is kind of crazy to say to a 4-2 quarterback. Like, we're going to go with the other guy. But I think they just understand that while Fields has played solid to this point, Russ just gives him maybe a little bit higher of a ceiling. Obviously, he hasn't been a good quarterback lately, but we kind of know what Fields gives this team already, and while he's gotten them to 4-2, it's obviously been with tremendous performances by their defense and things like that. And I think they at this point just want to see what their maximum ceiling can be, and Tomlin knows he's going to be able to get his defense to win those games. Those tight games, regardless of who his quarterback is. So he might as well try and put a couple extra points on the board to get those tougher games. So I really don't see anything special coming out of this Pittsburgh team. I think they're going to be probably the same team until they actually get a real quarterback. Maybe it's next year, maybe it's 3 years from now, but I think the kind of evaluation of this team is going to continue to be the same. They're going to keep picking great defensive personnel. TJ Watt's going to keep dominating, all that type of stuff. Tomlin's going to coach tremendous, especially when they're underdogs, which is why I think they're probably going to have a great showing this week at home against the Jets on Monday night or Sunday Night Football. And they'll probably get to 10 wins, like you said. That's I'm pretty much on the same page as you there.
Yeah, no, they're weird, man. It's always tough with them because a lot of people just look at them on paper like, okay, this team should not win 10 games, and then they just do it anyway, So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they'll be a weird team. They might sit in that wild card and maybe give you a scare, but I don't think they're anywhere past that first round game, that wild card game. So, they're a talented team. They'll probably be a playoff team. We'll see, of course. Looking at the AFC East, so I really think this is just a two-team division now. The Dolphins, we just don't know what's going on with Tua. So the Tua stuff is just really tough for them. So them sitting at 2-3 and second in the division right now, it doesn't matter. They'll fall off. And then the Patriots, it's just rough, dude. Like, I feel bad that Drake May is playing right now because it's really, really bad there. And I don't know how well he's going to develop with it. He actually played okay last week, which was impressive to me. So we'll see how he looks in New England. But I don't think either of these two teams are even worth talking about, really. So let's center on Jets and Buffalo. Yeah, let's skip them. Jets, Buffalo here. I want to start with the Jets. They made this big trade for Devontae Adams literally a couple days ago. So, do you, I mean, what do you think about this trade? Because for me, like, it's hard to. I don't really know what to think because right now, the last 2 weeks, they were throwing it to Garrett Wilson like a lot more. So I don't really know how the identity shifts here, like, and how it makes them that much better. So talk to me about it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be helpful just because it's Rodgers is just such a trust guy as the quarterback, and it just gives him his ultimate security blanket, who he's had throughout his career. And obviously, Devontae is kind of declining, and he's not as good as he was in Green Bay, but I still think he's a top 15, top 20 wide receiver who will be able to produce for them and take a little bit of pressure off Garrett Wilson as well. And probably be beneficial to Garrett Wilson's career long term, just that he can see how a professional of that caliber works day in and day out. But I was pretty high on the Jets coming in to the season. I expected them to make the playoffs. I honestly still think they will, especially with this trade. I think it boosts them a little bit and just kind of encourages Rodgers to have that much better of a season. I think he's almost the type of player who you just are trying to get him to be happy the whole time so that he's playing better. Because you just see it in his face after everything goes wrong, like how disappointed he is, how disgusted he is with his teammates, and I think that just wears on everybody. So it'll be interested to see, or I'll be interested to see how things go for them going forward. But I mean, their defense is tremendous again, top 5, holding teams really low scoring this year. I think they're second in scoring defense. So I'm just thinking that they're probably going to get to 10 wins, and in the AFC, that's good enough to make the playoffs. And they have a pretty easy schedule coming up. So that's kind of where I'm at with the Jets, but I don't think they're going to do any damage come actual playoff time.
Yeah, no, it's tricky with the Jets. I think a lot of people were expected a lot more from them. And for me, I think it boils down to I expected Rodgers to look better than he has right now. You know, like he doesn't have that same poise. He doesn't have that same movement out of the pocket. And I mean, he's coming off the Achilles, so like yes, you know, it's very difficult to have that same like pop that he had, you know. But I think we just expected more. Now he's got Devontae. Now he's got Garrett Wilson. This all relies on Aaron Rodgers to be Aaron Rodgers. Like if he's Aaron Rodgers, this is one of the better teams in football. They got such dynamic weapons. They have Breece Hall. They have Braylon Allen, who's looked great. Like if you just list all their players,
yeah, on paper, they're
unreal. So the fact that they're sitting at 2-4 right now is just mind-boggling to me. It really is. So to me, I like what you're saying. I feel like yes, they can make a run. And they got a couple big games with the Steelers game. I really think this is going to be this is a must win. You know, you just fire your coach. You just make this move. Like everything is now like, okay, you got to win this game. Then you go to New England next week. You win that game. And then you have Houston at home. You know, like these two with Houston and Pittsburgh are just going to be huge to see. Okay, can the Jets be a real team? And I'm really excited to see it. Rodgers got to step up to me. I feel like he's throwing too many interceptions. He's throwing too many balls where it's just like, okay, really? Like, why are you throwing that ball? Yeah, so to me, Rodgers has got to act like a top 10 quarterback at least, you know, and be back to that guy that's not throwing interceptions because that's what he's known for. So I'm excited for the Jets. Like, I picked them to win the Super Bowl the year before when he tore his Achilles right away. Like, I really like what this team can be. They just got to put it together. And I'm excited to see what happens. Yeah, I mean, it's just interesting. The Jets are weird to me, man. They should be better than they are.
No, I would definitely agree. And I think that was kind of a disappointing loss to the Bills because they really had a chance to take that game. But I mean, what are your thoughts on Buffalo coming down the stretch here now? Like we've kind of seen what they are, and they're definitely different than what we expected out of them with the high flying passing offense. But they've been running the ball really well. Obviously, unfortunately, Cook gets injured, but
Yeah.
I think they're doing some good things.
Yeah, no, I love it from Buffalo. I absolutely love it. Preseason, I was very, very high on them just because of the fact, like, I was like, okay, there's no receivers here, but it's so important for teams to build off the run game. And especially with a really, really talented quarterback. Like, that's why I was super high on the Chargers going into this year, too. I was like, okay, they're going to establish the run. And if Herbert plays at a top 5 level, they'll be a great team. he isn't playing at a top 5 level, they're not a great team. They're a good team, but they're not a great team. With Josh Allen, he's playing at a top 5 level, and that's why they're sitting at 4-2 and look really, really good. You're playing against their losses as a team like Houston that has an unbelievable defense. And while this offensive line is good, they're more good for the running game. They're not the best like pass blocking scheme. So looking at it that way, like it was really difficult for them to get back into this game and win that game. And Josh Allen was pressured a lot, and they relied on the old Josh Allen to try to bail them out. They need to have games where they can't have him bail out. Like they got to be winning early in order for this to happen. And against Baltimore, it didn't. It just completely fell through because they were pressuring, they were getting on him. And, Baltimore, like, you're playing against a guy like Josh Allen. So, like, you expect them to be able to throw it all over the place. But, like, they got to be able to establish that run in order for him to be able to throw it all over the place. So, now they go and get a guy like Amari Cooper. Like, they're going all in to try to make this work. So I'm excited to see with Buffalo. Like, I really liked what they did in the offseason to actually establish an O-line and establish the run game, and then not make Josh Allen bail you out, because that's what's been killing you throughout the whole thing, because it turns into, okay, Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes, who's better? And Patrick Mahomes is going to win that every single time.
Yeah.
And it's impossible. Like, and that's not a knock on Josh Allen. There's one guy that can beat you, like that shouldn't be a knock, and it turns into a knock. But, he's an unreal quarterback, and I think establishing this run is the best thing for Josh Allen. What about you? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not quite as high as you on this Bills team, but I do think, I mean, they have great roster construction this year. I just don't like the defense as much. The Matt Milano injury really hurt them. He's obviously been the anchor of this defense in the middle for the past couple seasons, and they just haven't shown as much as they had in previous years. And I think Sean McDermott's kind of on the hot seat, honestly, depending on how this season goes, just because they might need a change at some point. He's done great things with the team, but they just haven't been able to get over the hump. And I think at some point, a change is imminent. So I think they're probably going to finish around the 11-win mark and get maybe the 3 seed in the AFC and win a playoff game or two. But I just think they are a class below, especially Baltimore and Kansas City in the AFC. And while they might be exciting, I just don't think they're actually going to make real noise in the playoffs.
That's fair. The AFC, especially at the top, like it's pretty stacked. You got KC, you got Houston, you got Baltimore, and when you're Buffalo, I feel like you're knocking at the door. Like, I think there's a tier 1, which is like Kansas City, Baltimore, Houston's climbing towards that tier 1 area. I don't know if they're there yet, but I think Houston's pretty much above Buffalo in that tier, where Buffalo is knocking on Houston's door. So to me, it's kind of that way, and they're getting close. If you got a guy like Josh Allen, to me, you got a chance. So that's why I'm very excited for Buffalo and think that they can maybe, like, if they were to play like a Houston in the playoffs, like maybe shock Houston, something like that. So with Buffalo, I think that wild card is going to be like, can they establish the run? And if they establish the run, I think they can beat anybody. So, I'm excited for them for sure. Yep. Let's go AFC South. We'll go through it a little quicker. Houston's the main contender. So let's talk about Houston for a second. Their defense looks unbelievable. Like they're pressuring all over the place. Their D-line's incredible this year. So offensively, it's been CJ Stroud and just the dynamic weapons. Stephon Diggs has looked good. They did lose Nico Collins for a little bit, but he was unreal before he went out. So talk to me a little bit about Houston, what you've seen from them. And we talked about the tiers of the AFC. They're knocking on the door. Like, do you think this team can get to that tier 1?
I think they can. I think what they need to do how they need to manage their season is they need to just get Nico Collins back to 100% healthy and make sure that they have him going into the playoffs, because, like you said, CJ Stroud's been playing pretty well, and he's been distributing the ball and finding all these different guys. And I think he can continue to do that and keep winning them games during the regular season. But come playoff time, that defense is going to need to step up, and that offense is going to need to produce. And they're not going to be able to do that with even Nico Collins at 85%. So I think that's the biggest directive for them the rest of the season is get to the playoffs healthy, because you're going to win the AFC South. So just get to the playoffs healthy. We're probably going to be in the 3 or the 4 spot.
Yep.
And at that point, win your home playoff game, and then it's going to be an absolute dogfight against the Ravens or the Chiefs or whoever you're going up against. And honestly, that's one of those things I can't wait for that game.
Yeah.
But I really do like the direction that they're headed. And like you said, their defense has been tremendous. I think Tank Dell is going to kind of now explode now that Nico Collins has been out, and we've seen Stephon Diggs been consistent this season, which we didn't necessarily know if that was going to happen. So now I think we're going to see that connection between Nico Collins and CJ Stroud between Tank Dell and CJ Stroud reestablish and hit some of those deep balls and create some more exciting football for this team. I'm excited to see this matchup this weekend against the Packers too, because I think if they can win that one without Nico and a game that the Packers really need to stay in the hunt in their division, then this team's going to be looking in a really good spot to maybe even get the 2 seed in the AFC.
Yeah. No, I mean, everything about them to me is impressive. Like, D'Amico Ryans has really put together just an unbelievable team. And the general manager has just done such a good job of putting the pieces together. It's really insane. And I was talking about Houston before last year, where I was like, okay, I'm excited for them. Like, I think they'll win like 7 games before last year. I was like, they're gonna be better than people think. Like, they're not gonna be at the bottom. And then they make the playoffs. So I'm like, what the heck is going on? You know, like you just don't expect it. And it's because they were building that defense. Like, the defense is just so great. Will Anderson looks unbelievable. They got so many weapons everywhere defensively. And then offensively, they just found the quarterback of the future, face of the franchise. CJ Stroud is turning into a top 5 guy, and it's just so impressive to me, man. Like, this Houston team is something, and I think they're scary. They're knocking on that door for sure in that tier 1 category. And just like you said, like, if they have that road playoff game in the second round, like, can they move to the next step? Because they made it there last year. Somehow they made it there last year.
Yeah.
Can they take that next step and get to that championship game? Like, we'll see, man. But they're definitely at the top of the conference now, and it's exciting stuff to watch them play for sure. All right, last 3 teams. Okay, Indianapolis, Tennessee, Jacksonville. Indianapolis, to me, Anthony Richardson with the health, that was always my concern with him. It's been a little bit of a struggle there. Joe Flacco's winning some games for them. To me, like, there's nothing crazy about the Colts. Like, they're not that good. I think the main question about these 3 teams is, like, why are the Jaguars this bad? I don't understand that at all. Can you shed some light on that at all for me?
Yeah, I think to be honest, it's kind of a mix of putting responsibility on Trevor and also on his offense and the play calling. I think just watching their games, some of their concepts just don't really make much sense to me. Like, they have exciting young players and their first round pick. Brian Thomas.
Yep.
Brian Thomas Jr. He's had some tremendous plays, some big touchdowns, but the consistency in the way that they call a game at certain times of the game and I don't think that they're giving Trevor easy options consistently. And I think he's also just missing some throws when they do finally create some easy things for him. So I think that obviously they're not going to move off of Trevor or anything like that, but I think they kind of just need to overhaul their coaching staff and kind of reset things for Trevor next season and put him in a position with consistent weapons and a consistent play calling scheme that he can know what he's going to expect coming into every week. Because I just think we see that inconsistency with this team and the way that they call their games week in, week out. And that's has led them to have 1 win to this point. And to be honest, I'm not even confident in them this week against New England, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. I mean, like, I just didn't expect it from this Jaguars team. Like, you expect them, okay, they have this amount of weapons. They have a solid defense. They can create pressure. Like, what's going on? And I like what you're saying about the inconsistency. Like, I've watched them. I haven't watched them a crazy amount this year. I do like the Jaguars. I was a big Trevor Lawrence guy coming out, one of my favorite quarterbacks to come out in the draft. So it's just been kind of disappointing to see the Jaguars struggle this much with only 1 playoff win on his resume, and he doesn't look like the greatest quarterback at all in that system. So it's just been a struggle as a somewhat Jaguars fan watching them play. So, and then Tennessee, Indianapolis. Tennessee, it's first year coach. You know, the Will Levis just not really being the guy. It's been a little bit of a struggle. And then the Colts, Anthony Richardson's health. That's just a question, I think, there. Question about those two quarterbacks, Richardson or Will Levis. I think it's clear like Richardson's the better quarterback and that guy. Do you have any faith in Anthony Richardson like turning into that guy if he can stay healthy, or is it just the health going to be the question for his whole career?
I think the health is just going to be a question for his whole career, and I just don't think. Um, I mean, he kind of draws that comparison to Cam Newton just with his physical build and the way that he can make some just tremendous plays. But he's already shown that his health has been a problem, something that Cam didn't really have an issue with until he got older. And he's also just not as accurate of a quarterback as Cam was. I mean, Cam, I think, is kind of underrated for the way he really passed the ball throughout the first 5-10 years of his career. And Richardson, while he's made some tremendous down the field plays that were super exciting and we've all seen, he's just been probably the most inconsistent quarterback in the league this year, accuracy wise. And
Yeah.
that's something that I think is hard to clean up, especially after your second year in the league. So while I don't really buy into Will Levis going forward either, I think he's probably gonna flame out pretty quickly here. I don't really have too much faith in the Anthony Richardson project, to be honest.
Yeah. These two were the toughest in my first draft, like figuring out. I actually had Levis over Richardson because I was like, okay, Richardson has all the tools. But when I watched him play at Florida, I was just like, okay, this guy is not processing it. And he's like one of the most inconsistent quarterbacks I've ever seen. He'll make an unbelievable 2-point conversion play that everybody talks about against Utah and their upset win. And then the next game, they're like losing the whole game to like freaking Stetson or whatever. I don't even know. But like, dude, it was so tough with Richardson. I was just like, okay, I can't get behind a guy like this, you know? And Levis, like you saw some things, like everybody was like, okay, he's got these qualities, he's got this stuff, he's one of the hardest working people, you know, and you're like, all right, like I'm gonna be a little higher on this guy. But you put him in Tennessee and it's just like, okay, everybody's as athletic as you and as like weightlifting as you know, like he was an unbelievable guy in the gym and that was their main thing, you know, on the hard work. And you know, like everybody's like that in the NFL, so you got to find your trait that is just better than everybody else. Like Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua found it right away, where they're going to film like every single day at freaking 5 a.m. You know, with Will Levis, it's just like, okay, like you could be the hardest worker in college, but once you get in the NFL, like it might be the same thing. You know, I think he's an unbelievable quarterback, and I think he can make some stuff work. I think he's a solid quarterback in the NFL, but and could start somewhere else. But there's no way to me where he turns into like one of those guys that we talk about, you know? And I feel like
I
it's
think that's
similar with
fair.
Anthony Richardson, because I do think they're solid quarterbacks. And that was kind of my draft eval of them, but it's just very difficult to turn into one of those guys. And that's why, like, it's shocking to see like a Jaden Daniels do this right away, you know, and stuff like that. When you're looking at quarterbacks going into the draft, like you're looking at this next year's class, you got like Quinn Ewers and stuff like that. What qualities do you look for in that?
Yeah, I think I kind of mentioned it earlier with the way that Caleb's been playing, and obviously it's exciting to see the off script stuff that like Shadur Sanders can do and things like that. But when I'm watching the college games and watching these highly touted prospects, I try to pay attention as much as I can to how they're playing on script and in the pocket, because that's ultimately what the NFL game comes down to. And I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm some quarterback guru who knows everything that goes into the position. But I watch enough football and I can just kind of tell when a quarterback's comfortable in the pocket or when they're really trying to get out of the pocket as much as they can.
Mhm.
And I just think that's the thing that you can predict the most going to the next level, is if you can be comfortable in the pocket and make your right reads and scan the field and get to your second, third read when your first one's not there. That's something that really makes me believe in a quarterback going to the NFL. So I still think there's some time with these guys in college to figure out who's going to do that, especially as the competition ramps up in conference play and into the playoff. Um, But that's kind of how I look at it is are you constantly trying to escape and use your athleticism to your advantage against these other college athletes? Or are you sticking with your processing power and showing that you're going to, once you get to the NFL, focus on the process of everything?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I always find like diving into the quarterbacks, especially like rookie quarterbacks and seeing how they develop into their second year. It's really interesting, like talking about it second year. And this is a perfect segue to go in the AFC West and talk about Bo Nix right now, who's I think going through a similar process where it's inconsistency, like Bo Nix 1 week can look really, really good. And then the next week he's sitting at halftime with -7 passing yards. Like you don't know what the heck you're gonna get. So talk to me a little bit about what you've seen from the Broncos, Bo Nix. They're sitting at 3-3, which I think a lot of people are surprised about a little bit. Because there's some weeks they look really good, like they beat the Buccaneers early this year. And then there's other weeks where they don't. So talk to me about the Broncos a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Broncos have just shown that that Sean Payton is still a good coach. I think that's kind of the first thing that we've realized is obviously he struggled last year in his first year, kind of trying to figure out if he could play with Russ, if he kind of wanted to get rid of Russ, and obviously we saw what happened in the offseason. But I think he's going to continue to coach up Bo Nix, and they're going to continue to develop and maybe he won't finish the year as the best rookie quarterback or as having the best season, obviously. But I think just with Bo Nix playing with such a quarterback whisperer, his career is in good hands. And I think going forward for him, that's going to be a really good thing. And Denver's kind of just back to their defensive identity. They've got Surtain on the outside, locking down the number one wide receiver. And then from there, they kind of just build their defense and they get after the quarterback pretty well for not having any big names. They defend the middle of the field pretty well as well. So the biggest thing is just controlling the ball for them and not getting run on, because when you have a quarterback like Bo Nix, you're going to just try to play complementary football on offense. And like you said, they're sitting at 3-3 right now. I mean, if they could somehow make the playoffs in the weak AFC with the wild cards like we talked about, that would be an awesome first year for them in this kind of new regime. And then just have a ton of confidence going forward. So I think that's really the goal for them right now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think Bo Nix has looked a lot better than a lot of people expected, even because like Sean Payton saw some stuff that he absolutely loved. And to me, with Bo Nix, like I wasn't that high on him. He was an older quarterback. He processes well, but I was just like, okay, how much upside does this guy have? It's really tricky there to find it with guys like that. It's a similar thing with Penix. Like I was a little lower on both of them. I was like, okay, I could see them going late first round, but like, why are they moving up as far as they did with Penix going 8 and the Knicks going 14? It was a little shocking there, but like with Sean Payton, like you see a guy and you go right after him, and he's looked great. He's looked very solid. The Broncos have figured out some things, and them sitting at 3-3, I think is a little surprising to me. But also, like I've always thought Sean Payton is a great coach. A lot of people like I don't think he's the most well-liked guy in the world, Sean Payton. Like a lot of people
I
are
don't
just
think so.
like, yeah, I don't really think so. But I really like how he breaks down the game. I thought he did a great job at Fox, like really analyzing the game and breaking down. And a lot of podcasts I listen to with people, coworkers I work with, Fox talk about like, yeah, he saw the game in a completely like new way after watching everybody. Like he was dissecting film more than anybody I've ever seen because he's watching everybody now and he's realizing, oh, I can do this. And like, and that's why everybody was so excited for him to get this job in Denver. And that's why they're always going to be, to me, like a similar team to like a Pittsburgh where they can like raise expectations. We're like, okay, if our expectation is 7, they might win 9 games, and I think they're going to be a team like that in the future that keeps doing that. And if Sean Payton, like, I just really think he's a type of coach that can really elevate a team to further than they are. And I love what you're saying about Surtain and their defense. Their defense looks great. They're back to the ways that they've been doing. And I'm excited for the Broncos. I think they look solid. And, they're in an AFC West that to me is a little interesting. I don't think Vegas is very good. So, I mean, I'm kind of crossing them off a little bit. They just don't have a quarterback. They're not the greatest. The Chargers, I'm pretty high on. I like Herbert. I like with the running style and what they're doing there. So it's going to be interesting to see where Denver lines up. But to me, they're going to be close with the Chargers, and it'll be exciting there. What are your thoughts on the Chargers versus Denver here? Who do you like more in that scenario?
Yeah, well, I'm not surprised you're going to go with Harbaugh in that scenario.
Yeah.
I am impressed with the way that he kind of just instilled his identity immediately in the offseason and built a team that was centered around the run game and kind of hard-nosed football. They've got a solid defense and just kind of moved over his identity from Michigan over to LA with the Chargers. And I think it's going to be solid for them this season. I think they're probably going to finish ahead of the Broncos. I do like what they've done, but I just don't think that that's going to be a recipe for success in the long term in this division with Justin Herbert, who's such a good quarterback. We've seen him do tremendous things in the past. I think maybe they won't be able to do it this season, but next offseason they need to lean into Herbert a little more and get him a couple more weapons because, I mean, this is just the Chiefs division. It has been, and it probably will be for the next 5 to 10 years. So you're competing with them and not the Broncos or the Raiders, really. So that's why I think the ultimate thing is just maximizing Herbert. And I think they're able to this year make the playoffs without necessarily doing that. I mean, he's been passing for like 200 yards a game or something like that.
Yeah.
They're just running the ball and making things happen with that way and controlling the game, which is important to do in Harbaugh's first year as a head coach, just establish that identity. We've talked about how teams need to do that with their run game. But I'm just hoping that going forward that they can play off the play action game a little more and use Herbert's talents as best they can, because while they might finish in the 7 or 6 spot in the AFC, the way that they are right now, they're not going to win a playoff game that way, in my opinion. So it really just boils down to, can we utilize Herbert to his maximum potential come the important part of the season?
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree completely. With the Chargers here, like I'm looking at it, the thing that's impressed me so much about them is their defense. Like Jesse Minter has come in and just installed the Michigan defense in there, and it's completely flipped them around. They're like number one in like almost every stat that you could look at. And to me, the Chiefs have the best defense. We'll talk about the Chiefs in a second. But like I think they're close too with the Chargers. And I did not expect to say that right now. Like I expected their defense to get better, but I didn't expect them to be top 5 in the NFL. And that's what they're playing. Like they have all the talent in the world. And I've never seen somebody take the Chargers with all their talent and put it together. Like every year, everybody's like, yeah, it's weird to see. Everybody's like, okay, my sleeper team's the Chargers. They're going to go off. They're going to be the team. And then they're not good. So like seeing them actually like win and like the stats not lying and them staying healthy right now, I think knock on wood, like they got to stay healthy, but right now it looks pretty solid with what they're doing. And Herbert, yes, he doesn't look great, but I also think they're trying to figure out, okay, what's the right way to use him? Because once they have Dobbins playing and once they have Gus Edwards playing, they're able to get this run game going and it looks great. Joe Alt looks awesome at the tackle, and their O-line is just moving people and really creating a great identity. Now it's going to be about, okay, Herbert, how can I identify and get better as a play action passer? Because I think Herbert's he's used to shotgun. He's used to having everybody rely on him and all this stuff and having these weapons. Now he doesn't have those weapons. So yes, we've seen Herbert be such a great quarterback with weapons and with stuff, but it's different. Like you have to be a good quarterback without that too. Like Mahomes has shown that. Like you don't need those. You don't need those weapons to win. So can Herbert like take that next step and be that? And I think right now he's not there, and I think he's still trying to learn it. But I'm actually more excited for the Chargers just because of the fact that I didn't expect the defense to be this good this early. And I actually think that they can shock some people when it comes down to the end of the year, because I think if this defense stays this good and they stay healthy, that's going to be the key. Like they got to stay healthy. And Herbert figures some stuff out. Like if near the end of the game, you're sitting with Herbert with the ball, like down 3, I'm still trusting Herbert, man, so I'm excited.
You gotta realize what you're saying though. You're asking the Los Angeles Chargers to stay healthy.
Yeah, I know. And that's the thing. That's the thing. That's the reason why like a lot of people can't get with the Chargers. But right now I'm talking myself into it, which isn't great. But you know what?
I like
Like
it. I like it.
I'll ride with it, man, because there is always a second half team that really like steps up. And to me, I can see this Chargers team really being that team with Herbert figuring some stuff out. So I'm excited to see what the Chargers do. I think it's going to be interesting, and I'm looking forward to it for sure. What are your thoughts? Do you think, other than the Chargers, do you think there's another team that could step up and like change their fortune in the second half of the season?
That's a great question. Honestly, I think that team is the Jets.
Okay,
I think
yeah,
the Devontae Adams trade was good for them in such a way where it's just a morale thing, and it's exciting for Rodgers to get him bought in even more so. And I just think they're all in for this season, and they expect a lot, and I think they're going to start to win some games here and kind of turn things around. Like I said, I love their defense. I think they're going to end up being kind of fighting with Buffalo for the division, but maybe ending up in the 5 or 6 spot in the AFC, and maybe even winning a road playoff game or two. So I do like what you're saying though about the Chargers. I think they can make some noise down the stretch in an AFC that's doesn't really have any of those middle tier teams that look like they're going to make any noise. So I think it's either going to be the Chargers or the Jets.
I like it. I like it a lot. So, we'll talk about the Chiefs in this segment here, but like we talked about the tiers in the AFC. So you got Chiefs and Ravens here. So talk to me about looking at these two teams, and then you can throw the Texans, you could throw the Bills if you want there. But looking at the top tier in the AFC, how does the Chiefs like match up with like a team like the Ravens or like Texans? Talk to me about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think I'm totally bought in on the three-peat, to be honest with you, and
Wow.
I'm
Okay.
almost liking it more with the way that they've gone 5-0 so far. They've obviously been super like inconsistent offensively, and Mahomes has had a pretty rough year. But just the way that this defense is playing and the way that they're winning games without having good Mahomes right now, we know he's going to elevate in the playoffs. And if they can get the 1 seed and he only has to win 2 games to get to the Super Bowl,
Yeah.
I just really like where this team is positioning themselves. And I think that he's just going to continue to build the rapport with his receivers that he's dealing with now with after he lost Rashee Rice. I mean, we saw Juju had a great game. We know Kelsey can do things in the playoffs. I think it's just going to be pick and choose your receiver in the regular season, and then come playoff time, Kelsey's going to step back up again, and they're going to have that rapport, and Pacheco's going to be back and everything like that. So I really like where this team's positioning themselves, and like you said, they just have the best defense in the league. They have the best defensive coordinator in the league. They have the best head coach in the league, the best special teams in the league. I mean, they're everything that a dynasty is supposed to be. And while I love this Ravens team and this Ravens offense is so scary, I just think the Chiefs match up with them tremendously on the defensive side of the ball. They have Chris Jones in the middle who can rush the pass, he can stop the run. They have so many other complementary guys. I mean, they got a great secondary as well, and obviously they lost L'Jarius Sneed, but McDuffie's still there in the slot,
Yeah.
and they just have guys that can match up with those Ravens weapons. So I really do like this team. As good as I think the Ravens are, I still think the Chiefs are my pick coming out of the AFC. If we're doing like a power rankings regular season wise, maybe I would even put the Ravens above them.
Yeah.
But the Chiefs are still my pick to come out of the AFC.
Yeah, I mean, like it's tough, man. Like looking at those two, I feel like it is a question between those two right now, and it comes down to right now. I trust Patrick Mahomes more than I trust Lamar Jackson, and that was the same argument as last year, you know. But like if Lamar could flip that on its ear, he really could, you know, with an unbelievable season, an MVP type season, and to me, like I feel like it's closer this year in talent. Last year, I thought the Ravens were the better team, clearly. This year, I feel like the Ravens lost some on defense. The Chiefs gained some on defense. And their offense is a little better this year, the Chiefs. You know, like they got a little bit more weapons. Mahomes hasn't been playing great this year, but they've still been able to find ways to win. And that's the thing with the Chiefs is they're always so good at finding ways to win games. And like the Ravens, they played great this year and looked great, and they weren't able to find ways to win in those first two games. So I like what you're saying about like still trusting the Chiefs more and still trusting them. The three-peat is hard for me though. It's hard for me to put that there. And that's why like I picked the Lions over the Chiefs in the preseason and was like, okay, like there will be so much pressure on a team to the three-peat if they were in the Super Bowl and they're playing against a team like that. Like it would just be so difficult, And I feel like the Lions would be the one team that could do it. Do you think there's any? So here's a better question. Is there a team you think that can beat the Chiefs in the NFL? Because to me, like it's just the Lions. I can't pick another team.
I think they just like the Chiefs are just, especially in the AFC, they're just the boogeyman. I think they have the Ravens number. They kind of have the Ravens figured out, as amazing of an offense as they have. I'm going to pick them over the Ravens every time. I just don't think Stroud has quite enough playoff experience to be confident to take the Texans over them. And I just think they're a class above every other team in the AFC. Yeah. And if in a potential Super Bowl matchup, while I do think the Lions are the best team in the NFC overall, honestly, as bad as this is going to sound, I think the Packers would have the best shot to beat the Chiefs, just because I think Love has a higher ceiling than Goff in a one-game scenario. And I think to beat Patrick Mahomes, I just think your quarterback has to have a tremendous game. And while Goff, I mean, he's done amazing things. He had an 18 for 18 game the other day. Like we know he can be a really good quarterback, but I just don't think he can have a transcendent type game or a Super Bowl MVP type game against a defense like that. And while I'm not going to sit here and say I would expect Jordan Love to do that, I would give him like a 15% chance to do it, while I don't think Goff really has any chance to do it. So that's why I would say like I have faith that the Packers could do something like that. I think they have a longer road to get there, and the Lions have a great shot to make the Super Bowl. It would be my pick to come out of the NFC right now. But as crazy as a three-peat sounds, I love how much the Chiefs talk about embracing it and how excited they are that they have a chance to do it, rather than it's been tough, every team's got our number, that type of thing. Yeah. And at the end of the day, like, I'm just not going to pick against Patrick Mahomes until he proves otherwise. Like, it's just so hard to pick against him.
Yeah, no, it really is. It really is. I feel like when looking at the Chiefs, like if you're playing a game against them, I think the key to beat them is establishing the run. If a team can do that, then I feel like anybody has a shot. Like if Baltimore does it, they have a shot. Because like if Derrick Henry is running all over them at the start of the game, like then it changes things, because then the defense starts to, like get pressure on them, and then they try to make an adjustment, and then maybe the pass is open down the field. And I feel like the only team that could exploit it the best would be the Lions, because then it establishes everything. Like once the run is established, Goff turns into a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. He just does. And then if the run is not established, he's very average. It's just the truth about Jared Goff. And that's the reason. Yeah, that's the reason why, like, I think it was 2019 when they had that Monday night game, Rams Chiefs 54-51. That's the reason why the Rams were able to win that game. Todd Gurley ran all over them. And that's why they won. Yes, it was a weaker Chiefs defense and it was a better Chiefs offense that year, but it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. That's why Mahomes was able to lose that game. The Patriots game, they were able to establish the run with James White at the beginning of the game, and then it turned into Tom Brady turning that into screens. And that's how they were able to do it. Right away in the Bucs game, Bucs Super Bowl against the Chiefs, they established the run by going right down the field and scoring. And then the Chiefs had no answers after that. And they weren't the better team in that scenario. Like, I think that Bucs team is the best Super Bowl team we've seen in a while. But, like, looking at it that way, though, that's the only way that the Chiefs have lost games. Even the Cincinnati game, Joe Mixon established a run on them. Same thing. And it's very tricky to beat a team like the Chiefs. And I feel like it's just so difficult to three-peat in the NFL. Like, something's got to give. And I love Mahomes. Like, I love him. I think he's He's on track to be the GOAT, and I want him to be the GOAT. Like, that would be so cool. But I feel like something's got to give when it's a three-peat, and that's just kind of how it rolls with me. But
No, I
I'm
think that's
excited,
fair.
dude.
I mean, I think you make a really good point about Goff and play action because you just see it the way that he uses the middle of the field when they do establish the run. I mean, he has such good weapons, Amon-Ra, he has Laporta in the middle of the field. Like with Jameson Williams also being a threat for the deep ball, like they're a very hard team to defend. And if they can establish the run and create it more of a shootout against the Chiefs, you're right. I think that could be a game that just comes down to kind of who has the ball last.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure, dude. I'm excited. The NFL is here. I mean, we're like a quarter of the way through the season. It's been an awesome season so far, and like, there's so many ways that the season could go. It's just an exciting time right now, man. It's super fun.
No, absolutely. It's sad how far through the season we already are. To be honest, like we've already gone 6 weeks and we got 12 regular season weeks left, and it's gonna go fast. So just enjoy it while it's here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. Well, Jack, I really appreciate you coming on the pod, man. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. I'm always down to talk some ball.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, that's going to wrap up the show for today. Thank you guys so much for listening, watching, wherever you're at. Make sure you give us those 5 stars on Spotify. Really, really helps out the show. And that is going to wrap it up for today. I will see you guys next time. Peace.